Hey, welcome everybody to Hope for Our Times. And guess who my guest is today? John Howler. John, this is going to be a terrific time. Haven't had you on in I'm thinking it's been a few weeks. I've been on the round table with you. That was great, but it's great to have you back.
Right. It's good to be back. I think we saw each other when I was in California. Oh, well, we did something at last end of April out at Calvary Chapel, the Harbor.
That was the last time, right? I think I just
think
returned
so.
from Israel or something like that. And that was great with Joe Pettit. Well, you were like here every week for a while. So not having you around for 4 weeks is like,
I wore out my welcome. So.
No, I think you were traveling, if I remember right, like 50 million miles across the country.
8,300 miles, but who's counting?
and a bird who hit your windshield and.
By the way, if I drove from my house to, if I drove straight from my house to Jerusalem, based on what we did on our trip, I would still have 2,300 miles to go.
Oh.
That sort of gives you an idea how far 8,300 miles
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. All right, so I'm just going to start rolling with this, all right? So the UN has all these crazy numbers, lies about what's going on with Gaza, and we had the inflated numbers, how many people are killed in Gaza. It turns out those were lies, but once they're out there, you can't put them, they're out there. I think they release those numbers intentionally to humiliate and embarrass and win a propaganda war because people believe them. So then the UN comes out and says 144,000 people are going to die because of starvation. Then they said 14,000 babies are going to die because of starvation. And then they'll retract them, but the problem is it's out there. John, so this is an author. He comes out of the UK, Amjad Taha. And he says this, which I really appreciate. He actually brings truth into the conversation. And he says, I know you don't like logic. Since October 7, 2023, Gaza has received more than 300,000 metric tons of humanitarian aid delivered through over 22,000 trucks to a population of just 2.1 million. That translates to roughly 143 kilograms of aid per person in just a few months, assuming an average of 3,500 calories per kilogram of food, which is standard for calorie-dense emergency rations. This aid contains more than 1.05 trillion calories in total, with Gaza's population requiring approximately 4.2 billion calories per day based on 2,000 calorie a day diet. And then he goes on and says this aid alone could fully feed the entire population for over 250 consecutive days with 3 full meals a day, room for dessert. Put differently, if the intake increased to 4 heavy meals per day, which far exceeds any humanitarian aid, it would be for 190 days. And then he goes on to compare to European cities, and he shows what he basically points out. This guy he's Arab, and he reports truth, and he's pointing out the absolute lies about, we've seen the trucks just the other day lined up, ready to go into Gaza, but the lies are still out there. We know Hamas hijacks trucks, they take the food. I've even seen them kill people who are trying to get the aid. But these are facts, but we never hear the facts. John, you have a pretty good handle on what Israel is actually doing in Gaza and doing everything above and beyond. As you read these things, what do you think?
I think the specific things on Gaza are pretty incredible, the lies that get told. For example, the 14,000 dead babies in the next 2 days lie. I just did a search for that on my X feed, and I have hundreds of posts that I can get my hands on very easily that repeat this, and a few that refute it. And it's a total, complete lie. And so I think, so the specifics are that we're getting lied to about Gaza. Look, I'm not denying that people are dying and people are suffering and everything, but I think So that's the one lie about Gaza. And then it's sort of a bigger problem with disinformation coming at us from all different sorts. So let's look at the Gaza thing first. You know, the one thing that I've noted, I think you and I have talked about in the past, is that Syria population was about 23 million in 2011 when the Syrian civil war started. Today, it's somewhere in the range of 14 million. That's a 9 million change. By most estimates, 1 million civilians in Syria have died. When you go to Sudan, by most reasonable estimates, over the past year, 4 million have died. And I would just suggest to you that I've not seen, well, I can say without reservation, that there's not been a single protest about the dead in Syria. There's not been a single protest about the dead in Sudan. And we had friends who were missionaries in a country called the Central African Republic for many years, right in the heart of Central Africa. And by the way, this used to be considered the most evangelical, the country that had been the most evangelized on earth. It was, roughly 4 or 5 million people, but it's completely been destroyed by Marxist revolutionaries, the Wagner Group, and all this other thing. A lot of people have died. Whole medical ministries that had been established and operating there for decades have been destroyed. There's no protest about any of that, and so it's the usual phrase really works in these cases: no Jews, no news. It's stunning to me. By the way, if you go, I would suggest everyone go to the UN population statistics and look at the UN population statistics. You're going to find a couple of stunning numbers. One is that despite the numbers killed in Gaza, the population of Gaza has increased since October 7th, 2023. Increased.
Yeah.
By quite a bit. And since October 20, and this shows you how distorted and wicked people are. I made this post. I said, you look at that, and they estimate that since October 27th, 2023 through the end of 2024, 50,000 babies had been born in Gaza. And when I posted that, you know what all these Jew haters did immediately? Oh man, the Israeli forces must really be doing a lot of rape.
Yeah, I unbelievable.
It's absolutely shocking to me. So that's the specifics on Gaza. There's not 14,000. There's not a famine. And I would just say, look at all the pictures that people are posting out of Gaza. First of all, the first thing you should question is that Gaza? Because they're taking pictures of people from famines, from other countries, from things that have been done by Muslim forces in different places, and saying, "Oh, look at what Israel's doing to Gaza," and it's a complete fake. And so the pictures are fake. I would also note too that go look at the pictures of Mosul after the British and American forces and the Kurdish forces took care of ISIS about 10 years ago. There were, I don't know how many ISIS fighters, maybe 6,000 at most, and 60,000 civilians were killed. And the British said at the time, the same British government that yesterday called for the establishment of a Palestinian state, mind you, they said that all the civilians in Mosul were complicit. So why can't we say that all the citizens in Gaza, for the most part, are complicit? And it's a war, and how you win a war is you beat and annihilate your enemy. And this has been Israel's problem since its founding, is that it's never really annihilated and humiliated its enemies. And instead, we've had these ridiculous things like these charades of people who claim that they love Palestinians and they love Jews, like the ceremony on the White House lawn on September 13th, 1993, to sign the Oslo Accords. And I was in D.C. that day and the next day, meeting and spent the day with a friend of mine in Congress. And he was all excited about what happened the day before. He was a Democrat. But I'm like, even then, you knew that this was just a complete charade, that they were doing it to appease people and it wasn't going to work. Palestinians didn't even really exist as a people group until Russian propaganda came out in 1964. Our friend Gil White, who we interviewed about a year ago, he's been all over that for quite a while.
So, and with that, I was going to ask you about Gil White, but the Palestinian flag, let me see, when was it invented? 1964.
It was a Russian psyop.
1964.
A Soviet psyop.
And I believe Putin was involved in that too, wasn't he? He would have been much younger at that time.
He would have been, I think he would have been too young. He would have only been 11 or 12, unless he was a child prodigy propagandist, which could be very well true in his case. I mean, he's one of the best in the world.
So the Palestinian flag gets invented in 1964. It was the KGB, the whole issue with the Palestinian state. Yasser Arafat was all part of that. So talking with...
That was by the way, that, just to interrupt you for a second, that was the Palestinian Liberation Organization. It was formed in 1964. And you hear all of this stuff. So you're going to hear all these idiots running around from Canada, UK, France, and I would suggest even Saudi Arabia, talking about the establishment of a Palestinian state. There's a big meeting coming up. I'm sure we'll get to that in June at the UN. But these people, they keep saying, we want to return to the 67 borders. Well, the Palestinian thing was created in 1964 when Israel didn't have any control over anything within the 1967 borders. So stop lying. We're really smarter than that. And you're all a bunch of liars. You hate Jews. We know that, and we're going to call you out for that.
Don't confuse us with the facts. Don't confuse my good lie with your facts. That's what it comes down to. Do you see a difference right now, or between Nazi Germany and all of the rhetoric that started coming out against the Jews and what we see now, or do you think we are seeing a very similar thing to what was happening during the times of Nazi Germany with, you think, a Kristallnacht, Night of the Broken Glass, all the anti-Semitism coming out?
I would say that it's probably worldwide now, as opposed to being largely centered in Germany. But I'm just seeing all these people who claim to be on the right in the United States, people who we might agree with on 95% of their positions, like Tucker and Candace and that type of thing, coming out and just spewing this Jew hatred. And then in the case of Candace, just spewing absolute outright lie propaganda pieces. And it sounds like she reads the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was a complete fake. It was a Russian made up thing, forgery, whatever you want to call it, from the late 1800s. And I think she reads it more than she reads the Bible.
Well, she did she convert to Catholicism or something like that?
She did, and she's always posting this. She'll spew these lies, and then she'll post at the end, pound Christ is King. Like, that's going to cover it all over and everything. But she did convert to Roman Catholicism. I can't figure out what's going on with her. I think she's just she's kind of a grifter. She looks and sees what's going to get her the most views and likes and clicks and everything, and then she kind of runs with that. So for a time it was right-wing stuff, or before that she was very left-wing. Then she went right-wing. Now she's going woke right. And I don't know. I just feel like I'm I was watching a video last night of a mother at a school board meeting someplace, I don't know, Virginia or someplace. saying, well, we should let these transgender people compete against our girls, and it's not bad for them to learn how to lose. And I'm just sort of thinking, like, I think there's a lot more mental illness out there than we think.
That's pretty. I mean, I'm watching that kind of stuff and just thinking, man, this stuff is absolutely nuts. Just absolutely nuts. Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. See how many of these we can get through. I'll call them rapid fire questions. So, do you believe we are living in Bible prophecy times?
Yeah, I could go into a long list of those. I see friends of ours like, I see, like Don Stewart and Brit Gillette and everybody, they put up these 12 reasons why. Certainly there are 12 reasons why. You and I talk a lot and text back and forth. And what's one of the things we talk about all the time is there's so much going on that's Bible prophecy related right now. That stage setting and that type of thing is that it's almost impossible to keep up. And everybody that I talk to that does what we do says the same thing. We just cannot keep up. We're so busy. I was texting with Bill Caney the other morning, and it was the same thing. We cannot keep up with everything that's going on. And it's like a flood. It's like a tsunami. And I don't know that it's going to change I'm pretty sure it's not going to change now until the Lord returns.
Yeah. I would say, what would you say is the biggest Bible prophecy that people are ignoring?
Well, I think there I think there are two issues that I see. One is there's a big ignorance on the issue of Israel, and I see this all over the Christian blogosphere and Facebook posts of Christian groups and everything. One, they either ignore it, or two, they're into various forms of replacement theology. And I would also say they're also into various forms of preterism. For example, a preterist, someone like a Gary DeMar or somebody like that, say that all prophecy was fulfilled in 70 AD and Jesus returned. And I think I was texting with you the other day. Now I'm seeing this thing running around prophecy circles and that type of thing called that we're living in Satan's little season. And this is just sort of an extreme form, in my view, an extreme form of preterism on steroids. The belief is that Jesus came and ruled and reigned, that they've added years to the calendar, and that a lot of the big buildings were built during the millennial reign of Jesus Christ, the big, beautiful cathedrals and that type of thing. And they've hidden that history. And Satan has now been released, as it says in Revelation 20, to deceive the nations. So he's deceiving the nations by completely erasing the history of Christ's millennial reign. And so anybody who does not believe that is deceived.
So, I mean, was Christ's millennial reign, did it start in the Dark Ages? I mean, did it start during the Crusades?
It went to about 1070 AD. And then
at the time Muhammad was rising up.
But now it says Satan's released for a short season right now. So apparently Satan's short season is longer than the millennial reign of Christ. I just think I get this stuff sent to me all the time. And I just think that this one, even hardcore preterists think that this is unsupported.
I would say so. Hey, by the way, a couple of questions for you, and then I'm going to get down to some rapid fire ones for you. How can people stay connected with you, John?
Just follow Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube, website fbchapel.com. That'll have links to our different media outlets. We do stream on Facebook, and when I do roundtables and that type of thing, I stream to X, my channel on X. I think it gets also to Telegram, Rumble. Real FBC is the name on Rumble. And if you go to our YouTube channel, or our website, fbchapel.com, there'll also be a link there that talks about our Israel tour that we're trying to get together for October.
Great. In fact, we both have tours coming up to Israel in October. and we both have a similar one. I'm calling mine Second Timers. John's is called Heartland. We're going to do some of the same things, like going
I'll
in.
have we'll have an extension
Yeah.
called Heartland Intensive, I think. Try to get into some of those areas that you were on your most recent tour.
Right. So we both have them coming up. You can check out the events page at either one of our. Now, is yours on your website? I believe it is, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a link on our fbchapel.com website.
So go there, check out John's, his itinerary. You can check out my itinerary too. Then I have another trip coming up to Israel in later October into November. That's up in the Galilee region and Dead Sea and Jerusalem. But check out John's. John and I will probably cross paths there. We're both going to do Heartland stuff. And it's going to be exciting to be able to be in those areas. But speaking of, with that, John, as we look at the Temple Mount, do you see more tension coming in the next year, or more access in the next year, or both?
I think I see more access. I think that there are the one thing that's happening is that, of course, excavations on or under the Temple Mount are not happening, but there are other areas that are being excavated. I just did an interview with Duran Spielman from JNS, former IDF spokesperson who's with City of David for many years, over 20 years. His book, I think, When the Stones Speak, similar to Joel Kramer's Where God Came Down, talking about these areas. And so there's a lot of excavations still going on in the City of David. And I'm hopeful that when we get there in October, that the pilgrimage road from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount will be open. So look, everything that happens over there confirms the Bible. And I think we need to factor that into our discussion. So I think what's going on there is incredibly significant.
It is. It totally is. We were there, just I think 8 weeks ago. And so we were there in October, then we were just there, as you know, and then just down in the Pool of Siloam, everything had kind of stopped for about 6 months after they got the property from, I think it was the Greek church or the Greek Orthodox Church, were able to continue excavating. And something was going on at the Pool of Siloam, and I said it, there had to have been 100 people that were working on it, digging. They were, the whole time we're standing there, just watching all of the work that's going on there. It was amazing. I'm convinced that they know something is there and they're going to uncover it, and they're about ready to announce it. And I would think that's going to come soon, probably before we get there in October. And we did the processional road with Roddy and Ellie Shukron, but not on that trip. When we were there in October at the Temple Zero, the Melchizedek Temple, we did it. And I'm hoping, like you, wouldn't that be crazy? That'd be so cool if by October we could do the Pilgrim Road or the Processional Road as a group. It's one thing to do it with a few people, but to be able to do it as a group would be, boy, that would be off the charts.
And I personally think those things are very prophetically significant.
I do too.
So what we're seeing is Orthodox Jews, not the Haredi group or the ultra Orthodox, but Orthodox Jews, guys like Jeremy Gimpel, Ari Abramowitz, Yishai Fleischer, and that type of thing. In the Christians, kind of, there's some, Tom, I believe that what we see coming in the future is a reconciliation between Jew and Christian. And it's going to be in the Messiah. So I'm not sure exactly how that all pans out, but I think we ought to get on board with it. And I think these joint efforts to do it. And listen, I think we talked about this a long time ago after I had been on the Pilgrimage Road when I was there for the media summit in December 2022. They took us down there and we walked a lot of it. We went down to the Pool of Siloam. And the talking of the guides and that type of thing from the City of David Foundation was that they want this to be a joint thing between Christians and Jews. And so I think we need to not compromise our beliefs or anything, but we need to get on board with that because it's coming and it's going to happen. They may not like how it happens. We may not like how it happens, but it's going to happen. So I think our responsibility now is to kind of get on board with that in kind of a sort of getting on the Bible prophecy program.
So, in fact, I don't think you can understand it without understanding Bible prophecy. Interesting, Avi Lipkin, I've had him on several times now. He has said the same thing. In fact, he's even said he believes the Holocaust is coming to Jews in America. That's going to drive even more Jews back to areas of Judea and Samaria. And he said, he made an interesting comment. He said, and a lot of the Jews in America have taken Christian spouses. He goes, they're going to be moving to Israel with them. And he goes, there is going to be this with the Christians that get it. Because there's a lot that claim to be Christians that are really, we're watching them grow in replacement theology and their anti-Semitism. And then on the Pilgrimage Road, John, it was so cool. I'm hoping you can do this in October, that we both can. We were able to go all the way through the entire thing, all the way up to the top and come out at the Temple Mount. And when I think of this and what's happening with somebody like Elishu Krohn or some of these others, I believe what I see is the same thing that you see. I'm looking forward to connecting with Yishai Fleischer. Is that how you say his name?
Yishai Fleischer.
Yeah, looking forward to connecting with him and reconnecting with the Israel guys while we're there. But in Psalm 102, it's a messianic psalm for when the Messiah returns, when Jesus comes back, sets up his real millennial kingdom, not this so-called one that happened. In verse 13 of Psalm 102, the Bible says, you will arise and have mercy on Zion, for the time to favor her has come. Yes, a set time. For your servants take pleasure in her stones and show favor to her dust. And I look at the archaeology finds, and that's what we're seeing. And what I'm witnessing, John, is with these people who were Orthodox or are Orthodox, it's like they're starting to think, well, maybe there's something to this, because as we know, many of them have actually been atheists and probably still are. But there's this, like a light that is a dimmer that's been off and it's being turned on, and this light is coming in. They're delighting in her dirt, showing favor to her dust. To me, that speaks of what we're seeing with archaeology, and God is the light is coming to Israel.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to figure out. You know, we want to rush it. It'll happen in due time, and but we know that there's a lot of problems for everybody in the meantime. So we kind of got to, use it as an evangelistic tool. Do your thing, and God's always the one who finishes the work anyway. So just do the right thing and let God take care of it.
So where do you see Qatar? Let me ask you this: Qatar, Iran, and China.
I agree with the 2017 version of Trump, who clearly said that Qatar was a terrorist funding organization country. They've peppered a lot. They've spread a lot of money through America. And everybody says, oh, well, it's just money to help fund programs and that type of thing. Okay, well, then stop talking about the $100 million a year that maybe AIPAC contributes to congressional coffers, because it pales in comparison to anything that Qatar has done and anything really that Saudi Arabia has done. So I'm concerned with I would call it the sort of the whitewashing of Qatar that I've seen over the past couple of months. They are a terrorist organization. They run Al Jazeera. When you think Qatar, you should think funder of Hamas, supporter of Hamas, propagandist for Hamas. And that's a big issue right now. I mean, Israel's still not done with Hamas, and I don't understand why. They just need to go in and finish the job and do it. And I think the Trump administration, and this is kind of back to your first question you talked about, there's tremendous disinformation floating around. But, there's a rift between Trump and Netanyahu says no, and Trump says no, and Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel from the U.S., says no. There's no space there. There's not anything. But it seems like this would be consistent with what we found out in an interview with Gail White a year ago, is that there's a very strong sometimes you might call it pro-Iranian. I would call it anti-Semitic to the core sentiment in Washington and in the deep state. So just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen these news reports that, oh, Trump's told Israel they have to finish Gaza. If they don't finish it in a week, he's going to split from them. And I just think a lot of this is really fake news. I'm not happy with the Trump visit to the Middle East and its emphasis. I don't mind that he talks to Qatar. I don't mind that he talks to al-Shara in Syria. I don't mind that he talks to Erdogan, but don't run around calling them good guys, because they're not good guys. That's where I would split with Trump very strongly. Speak the truth to him. It kind of cracks me up, because this plane that Qatar was going to give to the United States, $400 million Boeing 747 to use as Air Force One. First, I would think, and I think the Secret Service has said, it's a security nightmare to do that. But it's $400 million plane. And, I see people running around saying, well, it's Arab culture and you can't refuse a gift because it will offend them. And I'm like, why is it that we always have to worry about offending Arab culture? Why don't they worry about offending us?
Didn't they offend Israel with all the people that they slaughtered and the women they raped and the babies they cut out of wombs and put in microwaves? I mean, I'm thinking they've offended. And I would agree, when David offered, he wanted to buy Moriah, right? He wanted to buy the plot of land for the temple to be built. He goes to Araunah. He says, "Hey, I want to buy this." Araunah the Jebusite. Araunah said, "No, I'm going to give it to you." And David said, "Far be it from me that I should offer to the Lord that which cost me nothing." Right? And you look at this and go, you look at the plane. You're going, okay, I'm the whole thing. Qatar they're evil, and the whole thing to me, that aspect of it stinks. I kind of have an idea, and I'm curious your thoughts of what Trump is doing. Attempting to isolate Iran with the different leaders he's meeting of these different countries. But we're a couple of weeks past the beginning stages of it now. Are you thinking that, or what are you thinking?
Well, I guess my question would be: have you seen any weakening in the position of Iran after all of these trips to the Middle East?
No, they just keep saying it's going to get. We're going to go after you. Do you think Israel? By the time this posts, Israel might have attacked Iran. Do you think that that's just more news that's put in there for?
Well, just in the 24 hours before we recorded this, there are intelligence reports floating around that Israel's ready to attack Iran. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sort of a pragmatist. As Pam and I drove on our anniversary trip around the West, I was sort of looking at the terrain, and it's very similar to the terrain in Iran. Mountainous valleys, that type of thing. I mean, all over the West. And, they go to the bottom of a mountain, they drill down into below the mountain to build a base. So you have the doors where they come in and out, and you have the doors where the missiles would come in and out. But there's a huge mountain sitting on top of these things. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that we have the capability. I hope we do, but I don't know if we have the capability to take out these facilities. And remember, it's with Israel. There was a great study done back in 2007 or 2008, a guy named Anthony Cordesman, who just passed away in the last year, CSIS, I can't remember, Center for Security and International Strategy, I think. You can go look at it. It's a 2008 report about what would happen in a nuclear exchange between Syria, who at the time had nuclear ambitions, and Iran. It's very interesting from a prophetic standpoint. It was like Israel could get hit with a bomb and it probably would still go on. That's kind of an interesting statement that he made. This guy's not a Bible prophecy guy. And then the statement about Syria and Iran was, if Israel responds in like kind, they will cease to exist as a country. So I don't know how this is going to work out. I'm not optimistic, and I know that it only takes one bomb getting through have a devastating impact in, say, if it hits Tel Aviv. That would be devastating. And we see what happens every week now, almost every, right after Shabbat, there's a Houthi missile that comes flying into Tel Aviv or towards Ben Gurion Airport. And it, everybody runs to the bomb shelters and they usually shoot it down. Sometimes it's not going to cause any damage, so they let it explode. But it's just this constant hassle that they have to go through with running to the bomb shelters. And so, I mean, there's a perfect example. I mean, why do the Houthis, why has nothing been done to stop this? And the answer is it might take a ground invasion, and nobody wants to do that.
I agree. I don't know. I just have a hard time thinking that Israel is going to be able to just go it alone and take out everything in Iran they need to. Now, some of our colleagues differ from us and say Israel's going to do it, and those show certain Bible prophecies that would allude to that. But I think Israel would have a very difficult time because of everything you described, the terrain, the distance, everything involved, without the U.S. being going at it with them. But I'm not a military guy. And the other thing is, Israel, after the second ballistic missile attack from Iran, Israel went and took out their air defense capabilities. Well, nothing's happened since. So
that was 7 months ago.
Yeah, so I'm thinking Iran's been able to retool everything, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, you take out, and we don't know what's going on between Russia and Iran and supplying S-400 air defense systems. I'm sure Israel has worked out a way to get around them, but those can be replenished. And I'm just saying, as we've been talking about the Houthis for years. I mean, they attacked Saudi Arabia. They've been attacking shipping, and they're still doing it. They're still running around threatening everybody, and they live in the Stone Age, but they have missiles. So why hasn't the supply of missiles been completely disrupted? How is that getting from Iran and other places down to Yemen?
Yeah.
There's big distance involved. And it would seem like if they can shoot at our ships, why can't we shoot at their ships? I just don't understand it. Something's not right here.
I would say something's not right. Here's the other interesting thing. I know you and I were texting back and forth about it. When the Mideast, I remember reading a book, it had to have been 30 years ago, called something like the Mideast Powder Keg or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. Things are way more of a powder keg in the Mideast now than they were 30 years ago. And you look at the scenario, and I don't believe this is actually the fulfillment of it yet, but you and I have talked about prophecy as pattern. We can see patterns. So if we look at the white horse and the red horse, everybody, I'm not saying the Antichrist is riding right now, but if you look at the white horse and red horse of the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 6, the first two seals that are open. So the white horse goes about conquering and to conquer has a bow, but no arrow. So it appears there's military strength behind it, but it's not using its bullets and missiles to conquer. It's using negotiations, it's using that kind of thing. And then immediately,
it's using peace and prosperity.
Peace and prosperity, Daniel chapter 8. So we have this. And then you come to the red horse, what do you have? And peace was taken from the earth. And the implication there with the red horse is that there's a powder keg that goes off. And so I don't, just when you look at that scenario, and again, I just want everybody to be clear. I'm not saying this person or that person is the Antichrist or whatever. I believe the white horse is representative of a system, because I could present the exact same thing from the time of COVID and the lockdown, so everybody is conquered without firing a weapon. So we have this model that has been set, and right now we're looking at it in the Mideast, this type of model. But I mean, when you have Qatar, you have Saudi Arabia, and then you have this Jelani guy who's evil in Syria, and you have Turkey Erdogan, who's made it very clear. You pointed this out many times. On New Year's Day, his son says, "Hey, today it's Damascus, then we're going for Jerusalem," and Erdogan has made it very clear Jerusalem is target. Then the other day he pops up, he says, "I'm the one to bring peace to the Mideast." So you have these different Islamic territories that absolutely hate each other, and they're arming themselves, and Trump's trying to gather them all together. I don't know. It's just a matter of time to me before this goes really bad.
Before it really goes off. And I agree with you. And the other thing that I think from the recent Trump visit to the Middle East is that there was a huge economic component to it. Look at the big deals we're doing, the prosperity that we're bringing. And it's interesting. He's talking, I was just looking at reading his speech this morning from May 13th. And in it, he said, look, Mohammed bin Salman, Mohammed, you're building all these big, beautiful buildings and these things that are like nothing else on the earth. And you're bringing prosperity to your people and that type of thing. So I think in Trump's mind, he thinks we're building economic prosperity. And I saw a recent interview. There was an FII Institute in Europe last week in Albania. They did a video call for just a few minutes with Jared Kushner. And he's clearly, there are numerous reports that he's involved behind the scenes in a lot of this. And he's looking purely at it as a business deal, business proposition, and bringing peace and prosperity through the Abraham Accords. So I just think that when we jump forward to Revelation 13 in this final beast empire, things that are happening, one of the big components of that is an economic component. So while I'm all for economic prosperity and that type of thing, it makes my life better. But I also know that they're kind of running on two tracks. I don't think we should be deceived that economic prosperity is going to solve the issue when the Bible tells us that economic prosperity and economic foundation is really at the core of a lot of what goes on in the latter part of time before Jesus returns.
I totally agree. And when you look at Luke chapter 12, for example, in one of the parables that Jesus gives, he says, the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you least expect it, which also coincides with several other prophetic passages that to me indicate, wait a minute, things are going to be going really well. Economically, they're going to be going well. People are going to say, hey, you prophecy people are nuts. Look how good everything is going. And I can support that with at least 4 different scriptures that all lead to the same conclusion.
Right.
Even when you have, I'm not going to get into the rapture. Let's skip that for right now. But you have these different passages that imply that. And you're thinking, all right, interesting. And then you throw Wyckoff. So you mentioned Jared Kushner. You throw Wyckoff in there. Clearly, to me, Wyckoff is in it for business.
Well, he does. The other day he did an interview. I don't think a lot of people caught it. I think I played it in my update on Sunday, May 18th. And in it, he said that, well, if we can just get Iran on board with this, we'll have an economic entity in the Middle East that will be bigger than Europe. And I'm sort of thinking I just don't agree with that way of thinking, because I know we've got to get rid of the Iranian regime. And to me, it just sounds like compromise. And I know he comes out later and sort of corrects it and makes stronger statements. But when he's doing an interview with Qatari Carlson, he says, well, economic prosperity, we want all this. And Tucker's like fully on board with Qatar. He's like, why don't you just go work for Al Jazeera and get it over with?
Yeah. Well, John, I was invited to go somewhere just a few days ago, and I went. Didn't cost me anything. And it was a very upscale kind of place that my wife and I went to, and I'm there thinking it felt good. The people are everywhere. They have money. Life is great. You got beautiful pools and beautiful landscape and beautiful homes and beautiful country club and all of these things. And for one thing, I felt like I do not fit here. But I'm looking around thinking, what it's this, hey, everything's big and beautiful and everything's going great. Who would not, when it comes down to it, hey, if you can just keep it like this, well, that'll be great. And even have more of this. And this starts, I personally think, I keep hearing the economy in America is about ready to collapse. I don't think it's going to collapse tomorrow. I think that things are going to really abound because of all the money that is already starting to pour into America, which will also extend to much of the world.
Yeah, it seems very robust and very fragile all at the same time.
Yes, exactly. So let's say,
and it's easy to get. I guess I would say use the term seduced by that. Like, listen,
That's
when I look at it objectively, my life's pretty good. You know what I mean? We just took a big trip across America. We saw a lot of places with problems, but we drove by, and then we came home to a nice house. And so it's very easy to get seduced by this, peace and prosperity that may be coming. And then the tension is, we as Christians, we don't want to be considered to be the negative Nellies of the world. Like, oh yeah, well, that's just proving that it's really bad, that really bad is coming. So I don't know. I just know that we know that people will say peace and prosperity in the end times, and then we know that does not end well.
Yeah, I find it also fascinating as we are watching everything come together. I also think of the words from Peter in 2 Peter chapter 3, where he says, in the last days, scoffers will come, walking according to their own lust, which could be, like you said, it's the seducing through prosperity and peace. And I just think, it's a big, when I look at it, I see a big red flag. And again, I don't want to be like that prophecy guy that just is always going this direction, but it's just being aware of these things. As Peter says that, scoffers will come in the last days walking according to their own lust, saying, where's the promise of this coming? Our fathers used to tell us this. In other words, stop talking about that, you guys. Can't you see everything's going well? All this prophetic stuff, you need to just move on from it. I believe we are on the verge of experiencing that explosion of 2 Peter chapter 3. Because face it, when things are going really well, people are going to say, you guys are nuts. When things are going bad, they'll listen. When things are going well, they'll tell us we're crazy, which they already do anyways, John. Hey, we only got a couple minutes left. One more time, John. So you've got a trip to Israel. We both do, going to the Heartland. Yours is actually called Heartland for your extension. Is that right?
That'll be an extension on the tour. It's like an option, like a 5-day option.
No, that's a great option. Ours is called Second Timers. And check out the itineraries for both of those trips coming up in October. We're both assuming that we're going to be able to travel there. I'm trying to get to Israel ASAP just for a few days, just to visit some of our friends that we have. But it'll be great. So go to John's website, check it out. Go to our website too at the events page, and you can check out Hope for Our Times or John's too. John, again, how can people get a hold of you?
YouTube, Fellowship Bible Chapel, or my name, John Haller, Rumble, Real FBC, and then our website, fbchapel.com. And then I'm on social media and stuff. If you go to a prophecy roundtable that we've done on AI and tech, in the description there will be some of my social media, how to connect with me through social media.
Oh, fantastic. And by the way, everybody, the prophecy roundtable that we just did a couple of weeks back is also going to be on his channel here in a couple of weeks too. So that's pretty cool.
I think we've got another one scheduled for June 25th.
Very cool. Exciting times. John, thank you for joining me. It's been always great. Looking forward to, if neither of us are traveling too much, we can do this more often like we used to.
Sounds great. Look forward to it.
See ya. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.